What happens once democracy has been used up, when it has been hollowed out and emptied of meaning? What happens when each of its institutions has metastasized into something dangerous? What happens now that democracy and the free market have fused into a single predatory organism with a thin, constricted imagination that revolves almost entirely around the idea of maximizing profit? Now, for the most part, imperial wars are being fought to install democracies. Why should this be? What has changed? What makes democracy so user-friendly for empire and its corporate allies? India, a country celebrated all over the world as a role model of democracy and progress, is as good a place as any to try and begin to understand what has happened. They didn't bargain for the civil war that has broken out in India's mineral-rich heartland, homeland to its tribal people, dreamland to the mining multinationals. At current market rates, the minerals in the region have been valued not in millions, but in trillions of dollars. The bauxite in Orissa alone has been valued at more than $2 trillion. I should just say that bauxite is the ore that eventually is processed into aluminum, which is at the heart of the military-industrial complex. Around 2005, the state governments of West Bengal, Jharkhand, Orissa, and Chhattisgarh signed a few hundred memoranda of understandings, MOUs, for steel plants, power plants, aluminum refineries, dams, and mines. The forests that the media has taken to calling the Red Corridor or the Maoist Corridor could just as easily or accurately be called the MOUist Corridor. There's an MOU on every mountain, river, and forest glade. We're talking about social and environmental engineering on an unimaginable scale. In this information age, the plans that are afoot to destroy one of the world's most pristine forests and ecosystems, as well as the people who live in it, are all secret. To be sure, if it's given a free run, the mining industry will ratchet up the growth rate of the country dramatically. But in terms of real development, the opposite is true. Most countries that have the misfortune to have substantial deposits of minerals are right down at the bottom of the development index because they pay with their ecology for other countries' economies. The mining industry's calculations never take into account the catastrophic costs of environmental damage because that really can't be valued, or the devastating cost of displacing tribal people and destroying their way of life. But even on its own narrow terms, the numbers don't add up. Most of the money goes into the bank accounts of mining corporations. For example, according to the recent official Lokayukta report for Karnataka, hushed up because it's such a scandal, for every ton of iron ore mined by a private company, the government gets a royalty of 60 cents and the company makes $110. In the bauxite and aluminum sector, the figures are even worse. We're talking about daylight robbery to the tune of billions of dollars, enough to buy elections, governments, judges, newspapers, TV channels, NGOs, and aid agencies. And suddenly it's beginning to look as though the aspiration for a 10% growth rate and any kind of genuine democracy are mutually exclusive. To get the bauxite out of the flat-top hills, to extract iron ore, or to move millions of people off their lands and into cities, India has to become a police state. The government has to militarize. To justify that militarization, it needs an enemy. The Maoists are that enemy. But the assault on these homelands is driven by the free market and capitalism's endless quest to capture and control what it sees as resources. It would be too much to expect that an alternative to what looks very much like a planet rushing towards catastrophe will come from the imagination that has brought us to this pass in the first place. The first step towards reimagining a world gone terribly wrong would be to stop making war on those who have a different imagination, an imagination outside of capitalism and, for that matter, communism. an imagination which has an altogether different understanding of what constitutes happiness and fulfillment.